I spent 3.5 years as a new priest in Cambridge, England, and I quickly came to discover that oftentimes the British there found our Americanisms a little bit weird. Take, for instance, my first Mass for the Catholic students of the University of Cambridge. One of their first-year students, called a fresher, emerged from the chapel only to look up and blurt, "Father, you have such a funny accent." Anytime we were perceived, we Americans, to be misbehaving, I was referred to, or we were referred to, as cowboys, said like that, and we curiously gathered every year for these semi-sacred secular events for things like the Super Bowl. And as much as our British friends tried to join in and appreciate the camaraderie, at least during that football game, they would start looking at their watches and yawning by the end of the first quarter. And finally, we would all smuggle back into the UK from this land in our suitcases strange and mysterious foods that didn't exist there. Cornbread, macaroni and cheese, jellied cranberries in cans, and most importantly, pumpkin pie filling. And this brings me to the most perplexing American tradition abroad of all, Thanksgiving. A British professor once looked at me and asked, "I just don't see what can be appealing about a meal that's entirely composed of pureed side dishes." And in my final year, I reserved the dining room and the kitchen at our little Catholic chaplaincy, an old converted 14th century pub, and told my American friends that yes, we could do Thanksgiving. Everyone had to bring some part of it that magical evening. I carried a fresh turkey home from a market 2 miles on foot, like Bob Cratchit after Scrooge finally lightened up. A pot of mashed potatoes arrived between bicycle handlebars from halfway across town. Someone else had been smuggling in pumpkin pie filling for a year of trips in her suitcase and made enough pie to go around. I think people ended up sharing chairs, the room was so full. And with a fire roaring in that pub's hearth in a darkened room, we were ready to eat. And after Grace, one of my American friends, piped up. You know, she hesitated, "In my family, we all have to go around the room and say something that we're thankful for." And she looked kind of sheepish. You undergraduates especially know how you do when you're offering something really special that your family does, but also doing it sort of jokingly because you're deathly afraid your college friends will reject it, or you. I piped up, "Yeah, my family does that too." And a room full of people from every corner of the country and a number of corners of the world together gave thanks. And they were the same old things that we said in each of our families growing up. Nothing new. Family, friends, faith, freedom, and love. And that thing that had been so hokey in all of our home traditions was revealed for what it truly was, a central part of our lives. We just had to be in a culture not our own to begin to appreciate it. You see, my brothers and sisters, you and I would always describe ourselves, and probably rightly so, as grateful people. But very rarely, or at least not nearly frequently enough, do we practice and name aloud the gratitude which we theoretically claim as our mindset. To name out loud what we have been given that is important to us. And our readings today make a very curious claim that without practices of gratitude, we will not have faith at all. Notice first that Naaman the Syrian in our first reading had been made fun of by his colleagues for his following the prophet's directions. He was to bathe in the Jordan River 7 times, and his friends gave him the equivalent of an eye-raised come on, bro, we have rivers at home in Syria. And after he's cured of his leprosy, Naaman returns and gives thanks. But it isn't a thank you gift that the prophet accepts. It's that Naaman the Syrian, who's not even a Jew, has a new relationship with God. He is a creature and okay with his creatureliness. And gratitude that characterizes worship relates him back to his Creator. That's what Thanksgiving is about. And Naaman takes 2 loads of dirt from Israel to Syria home with him, so that dirt will remind him that all of his prayers and sacrifices are grounded, literally, in gratitude. It doesn't get clearer than the grateful leper in the gospel. 10 of them were cured, and that is a great reason to rejoice. The other 9 probably lived very happy lives, cured of their leprosy, readmitted to the community by the priests that they were going to see. But the one who came back to Christ only did so to thank him, to state out loud that he, a creature, had been given a great blessing by his Creator. And in that moment, Jesus tells him not only that he has faith, which was not the original issue, but that faith has saved him. Brothers and sisters, there's something very powerful about Thanksgiving here. It is the root of having faith. And I want to suggest to you that we spend a lot of time looking forward. For those who are watching from afar this day, at Notre Dame, this begins a sacred time on our campus called midterms. And there are exams and papers, some even for me, and people are thinking about trips and grades and internships and projects, and at long last, one day in the future, a hope for sleep. And that glance forward throughout the course of this week is important, but it's also oftentimes the cause of great anxiety for us. For it is all about midterm week or looking forward at any of our calendars, what we do, make, and create, and have to do. But when we look the other direction, when for just a moment we look back and give thanks for that which we have and who we are, we realize that we're standing on the solid ground of a reality made and given to each of us by God. We lose this perspective daily, every time we look ahead to our calendars, but it's why we must return time and again to Thanksgiving. I'd like to leave you with a bit of an experiment. Let's just say that Jesus gets us humans, our propensity to get totally stressed out and to forget where we're rooted because we're so worried about what is coming next. He would probably set up some act of thanksgiving, and as a Jew from Galilee, maybe not a meal of pumpkin squash and turkey, but nevertheless, some sort of meal dedicated to gratitude. And that, friends, if you didn't know it, is the word by which we call the Mass. It's how Eucharist is translated. It's the Greek word that means simply to give thanks. And it's why we need him in this sacrament so desperately each week. For you and I are Naaman the Syrian. We are the 10th leper. And even if at times our Mass of Thanksgiving, of Eucharist, each Sunday might be part of a tradition that others don't immediately understand, our Lord reaffirms this day that it is here, in our shared expression of real gratitude, that we open ourselves to the possibility of finding the faith we so desperately seek and need.